TextExpander from Smile is supporting this edition of MacVoices. TextExpander can help you be more productive in every single application on your Mac. Find out how at textexpander.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is part 2 of our conversation with Gene MacDonald and Manton Reece of Micro.Blog and Jonathan Hayes of Sunlit, talking about the integration of Sunlit with Micro.Blog and how it adds photo sharing capabilities to the microblogging social media service. This time around, we get into some additional capabilities of Micro.Blog and hear a little more about Sunlit and what it brings to the party. So let's get right back to it. Forgive me, I'm not sure who mentioned it, but somebody said something about the ability to create a podcast on Micro.Blog. And that leads me to ask a dozen different podcasting questions. And I don't want to go too far down that path, but go through the process a little bit about what kind of podcast or some of the characteristics of the kind of podcast you can create with Micro.Blog. Whoever.
Well, you can create whatever kind of podcasts you want. We have a limit on the file size, but it's very big compared to podcast audio files. It's part of our premium package, which includes video hosting and podcast hosting. And so it's $10 a month instead of $5 a month. But basically, all you have to do is upload an audio file and on your Micro.Blog. So it doesn't even have to be a separate site necessarily. And Micro.Blog hosts the file and also creates a podcast feed for you that you could submit to the Apple Podcast directory, for example. And we put it out there as a way to encourage people to do short podcasts like microcasts, and there have been a lot of really interesting projects that people have done. And some people just host their podcast at Micro.Blog. And we even have an app for the iPhone where you could record, edit, and post a podcast episode, just right from your iPhone. Is that covered?
Yeah. Sunlit, we talked about Sunlit and Micro.Blog, and then we have this third app, Wavelength, which makes it really easy to record a podcast on your iPhone and do some quick edits to it also. Kind of slice things up and move things around a little bit to edit and then publish your podcast. And so, the idea is just to make it much easier. I think there's so many people out there who would love to have a podcast, but it's just daunting to think about I need not only a microphone and all this other kind of setup, but I also need, someone to talk to for an hour and where to publish it and just the overhead of all that. So if we could make that really easy where people just record for 5 minutes, 10 minutes and publish it and they're done and we take care of everything else, that I think we could potentially see some other new podcasts that maybe we wouldn't have seen before. And that pretty much is what has happened. I mean, there's been some fun stuff that people are doing. And we just kind of handle everything. We take care of making the feed for you. We host the audio files for you. And you can go and kind of tinker with it if you want. But by default, it just gives you a podcast, and you can take it from there.
So as somebody that does podcasts, but also someone that knows people. I don't do as much as I probably should, but I know people that take lots of photographs and dump them to Instagram. And, the question has to come up. How long is that material going to be available on the service? And obviously, I think you said that everything is owned by the creator. So we don't have any ownership issues here, but there are retention issues because that can start to stack up server space in a big way if you're not careful.
Yeah. And so as Gene said, we do limit each episode to 45 megabytes, which it turns out is fine for 30 minutes, even an hour podcast, depending on how you encode it, although it's definitely designed for short podcasts. So there is some limits there that help in terms of server space. But you're right. Over time, there is a lot of bandwidth and a lot of server space, but that's that's okay. That's what we're here for. And like the idea of letting people own their content and having it at their own domain name. So like the podcast can be at your own domain name, is a big part of kind of the philosophy with Micro.Blog in terms of permanence, in terms of like thinking about making something that will last, because maybe you start podcasting or blogging on Micro.Blog and you keep it for a few years. And if you do want to move somewhere else, then you can migrate. You can export all your files. You can move your domain name somewhere else. So portability is a big part of that. But we plan on being here for a very long time also. So we're not going anywhere. I mean, this is what I'm here to do. This is what I'm on the planet to work on. So we hope to be hosting people's files for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I did not mean to imply anything
no.
you going away. I'm just more thinking really about from the business model standpoint.
Right.
That if I start to do it, God help me, if I start to do a daily podcast and start, doing even half of your limit, I mean, I'm not going to say that that's going to kill your server space, but that adds to it. And if you get enough people doing it, then that becomes a whole nother issue. So that's why I was asking the question.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. And I mean, there's a couple of things with that. Well, first of all, I'll say I started a kind of microcast before we did Micro.Blog, and then I moved it to Micro.Blog. And I think I had about 100 episodes when I moved it. And there was a lot of data, even with those short 100 episodes. That really adds up to a lot. And I migrated all that to Micro.Blog. And we had a few people that have moved, maybe not that many episodes, but they've moved, a couple dozen episodes over. Long term, I think it is something we will need to continue to scale up. But it is a paid service. So if people pay for that, then that allows us to get more servers and think about scaling it. And also the reality is that not everybody that's using the podcast hosting on Micro.Blog is creating a daily podcast. In fact, most aren't, right? Some people will just occasionally post an episode, and they're not all at the maximum or even half, the maximum file size limit. A lot of them are super small. So I think it's going to be fine. I mean, you're right. It is something that maybe at the beginning, especially, I was really kind of curious about, like, can we actually do this? Can we, host everything for people? And actually, even going back to the very beginning of Micro.Blog, at the launch of Micro.Blog, 4 years ago almost, you couldn't upload photos for exactly the reason you're talking about. I was worried, like, can we actually host photos for like all these people? And we enabled it, and turns out we can host photos for everybody. And we have them in multiple places in terms of multiple copies, and try to be the best, we can in terms of caring for your photos and making sure that they'll stick around, and making sure, they're at your own domain name, and just kind of all the other things that I talked about in terms of like, it's your site. If you want to move it, get your content out, you can do that in the future too.
Jonathan, I want to swing over to you before we get out of here to make sure that sort of the same question and something I really didn't think about until right now. We all know that Instagram does certain things to photos that are uploaded. I mean, by that they, there are certain file sizes and quality guidelines that, they don't go beyond. And if you do, then they just encode them down. So how do you handle that? Am I allowed to upload a raw file to your service? Or if I upload some, mega sized, just JPEG, do you downsize it?
So there's sort of two parts to that answer. So by default, if you're using either the Micro.Blog app or the Sunlit app, we will scale it down. Still pretty big, a lot bigger than you get on Instagram, largely because the majority of people that are posting photos don't need a super high res photo. That being said, you can upload yourself a very high res version or original, raw version of that photo outside of the actual blogging portion of the app, and then link to that photo. So it's a few more steps to go through. But if you want to have that high res original photo hosted, and that's what is that you're displaying in the apps or on your blog, you can do that. But by and large, most people don't care. They want to take a picture of what they had for dinner, or their cat or their dog or whatever. And so for that, we do by default just it's still, like I said, it's still a lot higher res. I think it's a 4 megapixel picture, something like that, 4,000 pixels resolution. But yeah, so we do that, and that helps preserve on the space. Man, did I get all that right?
More or less. It's less than that because Micro.Blog does scale things down on the server too, with the idea that this is not your primary copy of the photo. We'll scale it down so that it's just more efficient, for people to look at and that sort of thing. And also, again, getting to our space. Yeah, we honestly, we probably could not store raw versions of everybody's photo. That would probably be just like too much. So we do scale things down. We've talked about some options for people if they really, really want us not to scale the photo down. But the way I think about it is this is not your only copy of the photo. This is the copy of your photo for the web. And if you really want the full version, like John said, you can post, like some people who maybe they have a WordPress blog or something else, or even like Flickr or something, maybe they'll post the full version to an external blog or an external service, like Flickr or something that is all about preserving the original copy, in addition to other smaller sizes. And then they can link to that, or they can embed that in their webpage. But for the blogs hosted on Micro.Blog, we scale it down just so that it's faster and, more appropriate for the web. But I think we'll also keep improving that as people's phones get faster and, network gets faster and, all that sort of thing. Because like when we launched Micro.Blog, we scaled it down even more, and we've slowly crept that up so that it's not scaled as much. And also that file size limit I mentioned used to be much smaller. And I think we've probably doubled it, over the last year or so, as we kind of feel our way through this and see what we can support.
Yeah, after Apple's announcements next week, we might have to revisit that again. We'll see.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know something?
Not yet.
Speculation.
Oh, darn, I thought we were going to get a scoop here. MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of world-class software like TextExpander. If there is one productivity utility that you check out this month, it should be TextExpander. That's a pretty bold statement, so let me explain. TextExpander is one of those utilities that will benefit any Apple user, because we all have things that we type over and over. That means you are wasting time typing those things over and over. That means you might get sloppy with it and make mistakes in typing those things over and over. TextExpander to the rescue. In literally seconds, you can set up a short string of characters that text expands into those things that you type over and over, automatically, quickly, correctly every single time. And those things can be as short as your email address or as long as a several-page set of instructions on how to change the bag in your vacuum cleaner. Whatever. The point is that everyone can get something out of TextExpander, even at its most basic level. And believe me, there is a whole lot more on top of that basic level. For now, though, visit smilesoftware.com/podcast to download a demo version of TextExpander, install it, and start being more productive in a few minutes. That's smilesoftware.com/podcast for your copy of TextExpander. And while you're there, be sure to check out PDFpen and PDFpen Pro, two other world-class utilities from Smile. Thank you to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of MacVoices. So, Gene, I also want to make sure we touch on this too, again, before we get out of here. But I know you all are doing some photo walks or some organized photo taking kind of things.
Yeah, we do. So we've been, since 2019, we started doing some, challenges. Sort of, there's this thing called Blogvember in November, and we thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we had Micro.Blogvember, and basically we had every day of November a different word chosen randomly that people had to use if they wanted to be in the challenge. There's no requirement, obviously, but it's just one of those little challenges, and that try to, encourage people to write every day. And then earlier this year in February, and then again in August, we did month-long photo challenges with prompts. And people would post a photo each day of those months on a particular, word theme. and those are really popular. Those were, we had amazing photos, and people, who are into the photo sharing, they really like it a lot. So in October, we decided just for one day to do something we call a day in the life of an online community, where everybody will take and post a photo within a 24-hour period around the world. And I thought I really would like to get a lot of people to do this. And actually, almost 150 people have committed to doing it. I actually asked people to sign up for this one so I could gauge like how global it really was. And we have people from 14 time zones. And it'll be really cool. I'm very excited about, the community's really responded very positively to it. And I just think for us, we like to just remind ourselves and also, help the community remember that we're all just people out here. And each person is going to take a photo that, shows something about their daily life or what's going on around them, or, it can be anything. We're not very big into like rules, those kinds of rules at Micro.Blog, because every blog is your own, that's your own space to post things in. So I'm really looking forward to it, and we'll continue to do things like that, a few times a year, not all the time, because people do get like kind of exhausted, especially a 30-day photo challenge is a really, not too many people finish every day of that, but people did. It was very exciting. And we will do Micro.Blog-vember again, because that was pretty popular last year. And it's just like, hey, just take a second, write 280 words or less on, using this word. So use this word somewhere in your post. And, got everything from the profound to the extremely silly. And that makes it fun.
Not knowing when this show will come out because of our publication schedule, and as Jonathan referenced, the Apple event that is happening next week as we record this. When is your October event for?
It's
around the
going to
world?
be 24 hours from October 13th to the 14th, and of course, Apple did announce then, that. So we're going to send people right after the Apple announcement and say, okay, now go out there and take a photo, get some exercise and some fresh air. I don't know. But yeah, so most likely when people are listening to this, it will already be over, but we will be showcasing it. On our site, we'll be building a special collection of those photos, and they'll have, captions of where they're taken from. And I think, I do you remember, Chuck, those books called A Day in the Life of? It was a series of where they send 100 photographers to capture one day at a certain location.
Sure.
The first one was A Day in the Life of Australia, actually, and that was my thought of, I loved those books. And obviously we're not creating a coffee table book here. We're creating an internet archive, but I think it, especially right now, it would be nice to focus on something, that is creative and uplifting and reminds us that we're all human beings trying to get along.
A lot to be said for that right now, especially right now. And folks, just because you may not be hearing this in time to participate in that event, there will be obviously others. And I'm sure you can find Jean, and she'll be happy to enlist you in whatever her next brainstorm is.
Yes, always.
Yeah, she's good at that. Guys, did I miss anything? I know it sounds like there's a lot of meat to the updates and to the addition or integration of Sunlit. Anything that we should definitely make sure the listeners and viewers know?
I would just like to say that right now you are talking to the entire Micro.Blog team. So, because we have talked about a lot of things that have been done and created and updated and everything. And we work with a really, really small team, but and I like people to know that too, that we're we are also human beings, and we are trying to make something happen with what we have, and we've really appreciated all the support we've gotten so far.
That's very cool. I thought there was some kind of staff behind this. I didn't realize that this is it. So that's even more impressive. Wow. Okay. What's the best place to contact each of you about anything Sunlit or Micro.Blog related? Is just go to the website and use feedback forms, or?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
I don't have a feedback form, but I think all three of us are listed at the bottom of the Micro.Blog homepage, and we all have, our names on Micro.Blog linked up, and my blog is manton.org, and I post a lot there about like news and like what's new in Micro.Blog and new features that we're working on, and also other random things because it's my personal blog, but that's a good way to kind of keep in touch with what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Jean, best way to reach you?
Well, I am still Mac Genie, even on Micro.Blog, and but if you haven't made it over to Micro.Blog yet and you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm still there. I can't promise I'm going to be there forever. Someday I'm going to quit, but I feel like it's my job to be over there to pull the people into the lifeboat of Micro.Blog.
Yeah, and I would think, just maybe not competitive intelligence, but just to see the way the wind's blowing, on things. So
no, it's true.
Yeah, Jonathan, how about yours?
You can find me most places that take a user handle under the user handle Cheesemaker. There's a whole story and a couple of podcasts about that if you want to know more about that. Or you can also just go to my webpage, which is johnhayes, jonhayes.me. That's my blog, so you can get a hold of me there as well.
Cheesemaker. Okay. Okay.
Long story.
It's not a long story. It's a short story.
All right, it's a short story. I grew up in Tillamook, Oregon, whose high school mascot is the Cheesemaker. It's the home of Tillamook cheese, which, by the way, is the best cheddar on the planet. Sorry, folks in Wisconsin, if you're watching this, but it's true. And so that I adopted that user handle early on in the early days of the internet, and that's how a lot of people know how to get a hold of me. So it stuck. So that's it.
Okay, I like it. Sorry, Wisconsin. Send your emails to Jonathan.
You know where to get a hold of me. That's.
Hey guys, thank you so much. This has been really interesting. I'm especially fascinated by just the fact that this is a team. That just makes everything that you're doing amazing. Please keep it up. I've got to spend more time overseeing what you're doing and maybe participating a little more. So thank you. Well,
we'd love to see you over there, and I think you'll enjoy the community. As I said, a lot of good people over there.
All right. Well, come back anytime. You're always welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Go check out Micro.Blog. Go check out Sunlit, especially, but not just if you're frustrated with your existing social networks. Could be a supplement to it, or it could be someplace that you just go to retreat a little bit and maybe find a nicer experience. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.